Akintola, but the Western Nigeria Development Corporation was still in their care because that was not a federal, it was not a government parastatal. It was a business parastatal. The government just had a share in it. So this was the complications and everything that Akintola was very angry about. Now, when he took power, he believed that when Awolowo was premier, he was also Yoruba leader. And now that he's premier, he should be the Yoruba leader. And Yoruba people were telling him, no, Akintola, it doesn't work that way. Wow. Yeah. Hello? Can people hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were telling him that it doesn't work that way. Awolowo is the leader. You're just a premier. Now, I'm going to read from another book, also from Awolowo's book, and I'm going to read from 70. The reason why I'm using books is because these are sensitive things. I don't want them to be things I'm saying before people come and say, he's quoting, yeah, quoting something, yeah. So now this was during the first coronation, and they went somewhere. So yeah, I'm trying to. Okay, now at some point, the Gathering Storm. That's the title, and I'm reading from page 69. At some point, after his appointment as Premier of the Western Region in December 1959, Akintola developed the ambition to become leader of the AG as well as being Premier. When I was in the Western Region, I was both leader of the party and Premier of the region. Immediately after he assumed office, there were strong but not directly confirmed reports of utterances from him which were critical of and derogatory to my administration. I was not in any doubt that SLA was capable of any kind of treachery, but I preferred to wait and see. So as you can see, even he himself knew that Makitola was not the right person, but for some reason he played along, which I don't understand. That's one of the few things about the sage that is confusing to me, knowing that this person would not be loyal to what you represent, but still accepting. But anyway, so the first authentic indication and report came on the 3rd of April, 1960. Sikiru Adetono was installed as the Awujale of Ijebu-Ode. Before that date, it had been the practice of AG supporters to shout Awo, Awo on seeing me alone. Now, they saw me and Akintola and they shouted Awo, SLA on seeing SLA alone. So, or in any company. So, anytime they see Akintola, they will first of all shout Awo before they shout SLA, even if Awolowo is not there. And Akintola had a problem with that. And as it was saying, it was a huge crowd on the Toro grounds in Ijebu-Ode where the installation was performed. On SLA's arrival and departure, the crowd shouted only Awo, Awo. During the ceremony, it was continuous shouting of Kabiyesi and Awo. It was the second time to my knowledge when SLA's presence was so patently ignored by AG supporters and admirers. Now, so when SLA and his wife left Itoro that day, his wife complained bitterly. By the way, SLA's wife played a very, very bad role in feeding into his ego. And she, but if you kind of read the things that were happening about that time, you will see how she did not give him the right advices, and part of the things that led to the tensions. So God help us, and you know, when SLA and his wife left that day, she complained bitterly about the behavior of the crowd. They were mannerless and disrespectful. They knew that her husband was the premier and that he was in sole charge of the occasion. Why then were they so thoughtless and rude as to be shouting Awo instead of him? This kind of unseemly behavior must stop, and he must do something about it. She told her husband. In his response, SLA said that the crowd were extremely discourteous, that they treated him with contempt by shouting Awo instead of him. That was not the first time that this kind of thing happened since he became premier. Indeed, he was determined to do something about it without further delay. He declared and assured his wife, "Give me 6 months, and no one will hear the shout of Awo in the region again." And the wife properly commented, "This is how it should be." Okay, this happened in, when was Adetoro? This happened in 1960, April of 1960. So you can see that even before any situation, there has been that discomfort going on. So now, when Akitola came on board, giving. So it became a big headache to him that everything that he was doing, it wasn't going the way he wanted it to go. Page 76 of this book that I'm reading, The Gathering Storm, it was talking about sometime in January 1960, during his first month in office as premier, Akintola told me casually that he was thinking of reducing rates and taxes in the region. I advised him not to contemplate such a policy as it was in the circumstances dangerous. Then on 10 February 1960, at Akintola's request, a meeting was held in my house at Ibadan. Okay. Anyway, that's what I said. I don't want to go into too much readings, not to bore people. But yes, that was what happened at that time. He reduced tax because he wanted people to love him. And when people were still insisting that they were going to pay, he got upset, started to curse them out. By and by, he caused the first financial crisis in a region that was being run in a very, very beautiful way before. He started now arguing that he wanted the Western region, right, to be given over back to him, the Western Nigerian Development Corporation. He said they should give that to him because that's the cash cow. That was where most of the wealth was coming from. And he refused to give it. That was Awolowo. That was where most of their problems started. And many of those tensions that were going on was this in and out. Now, there was a meeting they had in Jos to settle things. That was between Akintola faction and Awolowo faction. By this time, the party had polarized into two. Some people were on Awolowo's side, some people were on Akintola's side. So now, while this meeting was going on, Akintola did something very ridiculous. Uh, he left to go to Ibadan. And so people didn't understand why he left. But it was at that point that they built a hostel in University of Ibadan. And they were naming it after Sultan Bello. Sultan Bello was the son of Usman Danfodio and the grandfather of Ahmadu Bello. So now, page 94 of the book I'm reading says, according to the newspaper reports, Chief Akitola had gone to Ibadan to welcome the Premier of Northern Nigeria, who had gone there on the invitation of the University College Ibadan, to open Sultan Bello Hall. According to the information from the principal, which reached us as JOS, Chief Akintola's presence had embarrassed the university's college authorities as he had not been expected. So it wasn't something they invited him to, it wasn't something he was called to be a part of. But because he desperately wanted to cut the knot, he needed their help. to be able to fight Awolowo. Yes, Mr. Jamba, he needed Fulani to fight his brother. He started to cut them in a very, very clever way and try to let them realize that, listen, the problem that Awolowo is giving you, I won't give you that problem if you will just support me. So this was where that tension started to polarize, especially when it was obvious that the North was willing to support him. That was how he bó ṣe gbàbọdè fún ilẹ̀ Yorùbá nìyẹn, and that was the reason that led to that song of Herbert Ogunde titled Yorùbá Ronú. That song was, if you listen to all the lyrics of that song, everything they were saying, he was actually passing indirect jabs at Akintola and trying to let him understand that what you're doing is very dangerous. Going to the north against your brother Awolowo, and you know how much Ogunde was really into Awolowo. So he explained that in a song. Uh, I'll take a 1 minute break now, and in case people want to add, and then we'll finalize after. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bonka. Um, please, if you have any contributions, you can flash your mic. Clement, please go ahead. So, Clement,
Yeah.
yes, I remember what I wanted to say. So, to
Okay.
one of your questions, right, that the Fulanis have always uh, gone very low in terms of their methods, going to people's land, killing women, and doing all of those. So they did it before and it worked. So whatever strategy that works is the strategy that you would use. You may say or think that it is crude, but really, what other way would you want to have people's land than to
Hmm.
go and kill them so that you can
Hmm.
have that land to yourself? So that is the short answer to your response. So you can go ahead, Mr. Clement.
Yeah. Before I even talk, I want to really appreciate the effort of Mr. Bonka, even with the fact that sometimes when he's reading and he still goes ahead. I mean, he still went ahead to read. I want to really appreciate that toughness in him. And I wish I can give him a kind of, a bottle of chilled drinks just for him to cool and relax after. I'm serious. Yes, after this reading. But I want to appreciate the effort and the reasons of it anyway. And, to what Mr. Otumba has just said, I'm just surprised, that with all this exposure, with all this technological age, with all this jet age, with all this, modern development, some people still choose. They still choose to be backward. They still choose to be relating with others in very cruel way. I don't know how they think. I don't know how. I don't even think. I don't even know maybe they are.
Clement, are you still there?
Yeah, are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, my Bluetooth just went off, so I have to switch over to direct mic. So I don't know how the Fulanis how they think. I don't know in this modern world. Maybe they just want to choose to be backward forever. I don't even know. I don't know. Now let me go to one of my questions that was not answered, and that was the only question I have. Except if someone wants to still lay emphasis on the issue with Fulanis as regards to people are progressive, people are progressing, the world is moving forward, they are stagnant and they are moving backward. That question is about Awolowo, that Awolowo had issues with Olubadan when Clemens and the likes. That I'm surprised why Olubadan, when Clemens and others, they are like they are Yorubas too, and I expect that they should be brothers to Awolowo, brothers in terms of in quantitative way of speaking. That is, in terms of if a Yoruba man like you is doing what we progress Yoruba land, I think they should be more supportive. Why were they giving him problem? Was it because they were more or less selfish oriented people? I don't know. What was even I mean, what was a kind of a reasonable reason what was something concrete that really made them to be doing this to him then? I don't know if there is any reasons like that. Maybe somebody could just help me out
Okay,
with that. Let
we're
me.
going to come back. That is a really good question. But before we have people respond to that, please enjoy this.
Oya ẹwẹ́ tiẹ̀. Ibo ànígbà. Oṣù tó bá tó jẹ́ ní kú kò lè gbé mi lọ. Kàkà kékun má gẹ̀sẹ̀sẹ̀, àbí sàwádà nù.
Mo bójú wáyé o wáyé ṣamálámálá.
Mo bójú wáyé o wáyé ṣamálámálá.
Mo máa bójú ọ̀run òkùnkùn ló ṣubúlẹ̀.
Mo máa bójú ọ̀run òkùnkùn ló ṣubúlẹ̀ o.
Mo ní ẹ̀ẹ́rẹ́ yìí o. Kí ni dé sí Yorùbá o ọmọ aráyé? Kí ni ṣẹlẹ̀ sí Yorùbá o ọmọ Oòduà o?
Àwa máa ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ là ń bẹ. Yorùbá ń ṣera wọn nítorí owó. Yorùbá ń jìra wọn lẹ́sẹ̀ nítorí ipò. Wọ́n gbẹ̀mí fáláre, wọ́n gbáre pẹ́lẹ́bí. Wọ́n kò lè kó wájà, wọ́n tún kó lóko wá mú. Ọgbọ́n tí wọ́n gbọ́ ló gbé wọn délé ọlá. Ọgbọ́n náà ló tún padà wá sílé wọn mọ́lẹ̀ o. Àwọn tí wọ́n ti ń ṣọ̀gá lọ́jọ́ tó ti pẹ́. Tún padà wá dẹni à ń fọwọ́ ti sẹ́yìn o. Yorùbá yoyoyo bí iná alẹ́. Yorùbá rúrúrú bí omi òkun. Yorùbá bàbá ni bàbá ń ṣe. Yorùbá ronú o.
Yorùbá sọra wọn di bọ́ọ̀lù fáráyé gbá.
Wọ́n bá gbá wọn sókè, wọ́n ti gbá wọn sísàlẹ̀ o. Ẹ̀yà tí ó ti kéré tẹ́lẹ̀ ni wọ́n gé kúrú. Àwọn tí àìfẹ́ lọ́sùn ti dẹni àtijọ́ Yorùbá jókòó sílẹ̀ rẹ̀gẹ̀dẹ̀ wọn fọwọ́ lọ́wọ́. Bí àgùntàn tí abọ́ rẹ̀ ń bòrìṣà ilẹ̀ o. Yorùbá ronú o.
Oríkì màí burú títí kó bógún ọdún lẹ́yìn òkùnkùn bèrèbèrè ìmọ́lẹ̀ yàtọ̀ o. Ẹ jẹ́ ká pọ̀ Olódùmarè ká pọ̀ Balùwàyé káyé wa lè dùn nígbẹ̀yìn ìgbẹ̀yìn lálàyò ilẹ̀ mọ́ pé ìyá o.
Ilẹ̀ dákun gbà wá o.
Ilẹ̀ ọ̀gẹ́rẹ́ àfọkọ́yẹrí. Alákòókà ó tẹ́rẹ̀ẹ́rẹ́ kábíyé. Ọ̀gbaragàdà bí ẹni yèyé mi ọmọ darúpalẹ̀ àdúgbò. Òjijì tí ka ìkàlẹ́nu mọ́. Àtẹ ìka ọkọ tí a pèlẹ̀. Ọ̀gbàmùgbàmù ojú Olódùmarè ò máa ṣe gbàmù lọ́wọ́ ayé. Ẹni bá dalẹ̀ abalẹ̀ lọ ò gẹ́gẹ́ o. Odùduwà bá wa túnlẹ̀ yìí ṣe òṣòwò tọmọ o. Odùduwà dá wa láre o ká sì máa rẹ́rìn jẹ́ o.
Went on that short break. My brother Clement asked us a very interesting question. Kí ló dé? What is it that made people like Akintola, Messi, and so on? What made them to fight late Chief Obafemi Awolowo with everything that they've got? My brother Musa forgets please come out for gate, come and answer us.
Actually, Otumba, thank you. I'm actually not at the gate at this moment. So I have a question that goes along that line too, because I've also noticed that with all these brilliant ideas, brilliant initiatives that would outrightly favor the people of the Southwest, still yet, this man was not successful. So I want to know what actually contributed to his downfall, or what actually contributed to his non-success in all these brilliant uh, venture to move the Southwest people forward.
Okay, let me actually uh, let me try to paraphrase that. I don't actually believe that Awolowo, of course, was uh, uh, the premier of the Western region, and that he did successfully, and he handed over to Akintola. Did he fail? No. If you ask me, it was Akintola that failed, but I'm sure that other people might have different perspectives to that. Uh, I can see your papa flashing his mic. Your papa, please go ahead. Your papa.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it was because Awolowo was thinking about uplifting many Yoruba people away from the poverty, while some people were actually thinking about the position they want to occupy
God
and
bless
just
you.
that, just like the song that we just listened to. People were actually thinking about, see, until Yoruba people start thinking collectively, let's have that spirit of say we want to impart on the future generation and not just ourselves. See, I'm in this movement not because of what to eat or God has blessed me already. Sure, you get my point. And many other people on this stage, God has blessed them. But what about the future generation? What about the kids on the street that are not going to school? So then people were not actually thinking of what this man was doing. They were only thinking of what position I want to occupy, what money do I, how do I siphon money, how do I occupy land, those are the things people were thinking, and they need to actually break that the back of that man from lifting many people from poverty, then from actually also opening their eyes. Some of the things that you see the Fulanis are trying to. That is why they have to depose Sanusi, trying to awaken people's consciousness. But Awolowo was doing this, going to the farm to take people kids away from going to farm, send them to school. They see that as, oh, when these people go to school, they will start coming to challenge us. So those elite of then, they were actually thinking about what position they will occupy and what money they need to get, and Awolowo wasn't doing that. He was doing that for the spirit of developing the region, and why those other people were actually thinking about their own personal aggrandizement, or whatever. How would I say that? Just their own thing that is personal to them, not things that is for collective gain. Thank
All right, thank you so much. So to add to what your papa said, many people actually, so those people with ego problems, those people in it for their own selfish gains, they wanted recognition and they are not getting it. Awolowo was getting all of those attention. And for them to really gain the recognition and attention that they needed from the Yoruba people, Awolowo now became their number one enemy. So if Awolowo would be out of their way, they can now gain the prominence that they so desperately desire to gain. And it is so, don't let us uh, mistake this. What happened in those days is still happening today. It's still happening today. So when most of us are saying that the Nigerian constitution is fraudulent, that it is really wrong, and that we should have conversations around that constitution before we even go into any elections. Some people who also agree in self-determination, some people who also believe that the Yoruba people deserve better than they are getting today, some of them are saying, let us go and use that constitution one more time. That if they use that constitution and they get sworn in by that constitution, then they can now start to look for ways to change that constitution. And what we are telling them is that uh, there is no way of trying to change that constitution from the within of the system. It is now that we've got the chance to collectively speak up against these people so that they can allow us have the hard conversations that need to be had, the hard conversations that really need to happen before we go into another election. So those people, they are also Yoruba people. They also profess to love the Yoruba people. But in practical terms, some of them are really looking out for themselves. They are looking for their own selfish interests, fulfilling their selfish ambitions. And to be able to do that, just to make things very clear, one, you have to hate your people. Secondly, you have to hate the Igbo people, and you have to align yourself with the Fulani North because they call the shot as far as the Nigerian politics goes. So you have to be their friends before you can gain that prominence that you desire. Musa Forgate, please go ahead.
Thank you, Otumba. I just want to add the context to what he just ended with now. So, a couple of days ago, I think it was last month, that I think Pastor Tunde Bakari went to Aso Rock to meet with the president, and then he came back and he made a statement saying categorically it was newspaper publication, not Musa Nagate at the mind. Now he make public announcement say there is no president, there is no one that can be president in Nigeria unless you negotiate with the North. The man said it, that you cannot ever be president in Nigeria unless you negotiate with the North. So I don't see how these people want in 2023 without protecting the interest of the North. Thank you.
This is
Well,
serious,
Mr.
bro.
Bonka, do you want to continue?
Yes, if nobody else has things to say, but I would love to hear people speak for a minute.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead, Mr. Femi.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna. I've been listening and learning a lot. So first of all, I want to say thank you guys. I've learned a lot. I've got a question. When Mr. Bonker started, he started talking about Yoruba people from an Igbo perspective. Yeah, he was talking about how they wanted to dominate this, that, and the other. And the discussion now is about how we have to negotiate with the North, this, that, and the other. So my question is this. Well, first of all, I want to say that Mr. Awolowo he's like, I would say he's like, to Yoruba people, he's like Jesus. If he was around today, he would still be ahead of his time. The man was, I'm speechless. If there needs to be a word better than great. So what I'm saying is that um, there's a common thread, and that is we're victims. We always say we're victims of the British or the North or the Igbo or this, and we're always victims. Why are we always victims? So I feel like, and Latironu, because we can't, it's impossible for us always to be victims if we're the richest
of what happened with Awolowo, what happened with even Abiola eventually, uh, which is again karma at its peak. And if you look at what's happening today in Nigerian political landscape, you can see, what is going on within us, the Yoruba people. Uh, just recently, I think a few days ago, I was listening to an audio of a Yoruba man, very boastful of the roles that he played in going into Chief Sunday Igboho's house, uh, with the intention to go kill him. He was, this guy is a Yoruba man, and he said they went along other babalawos and other people who are also Yorubas. So not until we get our act together, and even now that some of us are talking about Yoruba nation, we still have some of us who are strongly saying that they want to run for office, they want to be politicians, they want to go play that politics that we all know what the end result is going to be even before they go into it. They know too, but they just have to go because for them it's all about self, it's all about individuals, right? So no, thank you for bringing that perspectives. Mr. Benjamin, please go ahead. For a minute, please.
All right. Thank you very much. Um, to me, it seems as though Awolowo happened to we the Yorubas. That is
Can
one thing.
you
So
speak up, please?
all right, thank you. Can you hear me now?
If you are
All right.
using your earpiece, please remove it and yeah.
Hear me now.
Yes, it's better. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Now, to me, it seems as though Awolowo just happened to we the Yorubas. So if you look at the history from the beginning, for those of us that joined early, it was one that felt, no, my people should not be dominated by these people, by these other people and all of that. And he took it upon himself to make sure that Yoruba interests are protected. So he was a very good leader that happened to the Yorubas. It's not like we, the Yorubas, came together and then say, no, we don't want this or no, we don't want that. It was one that took all those responsibilities on himself. And one of the disadvantages with that kind of style is that when that kind of leader is no more, then the people suffer. When is being succeeded by someone that doesn't have the interest of the people at heart. I think that is what happened to we the Yorubas, and that is what is happening now. So we look for a Messiah when the Messiah does what is right, and when he is no more there, and someone that is bad comes around, we start praying for a good leader again to come and rescue the situation. So I think to have a long-lasting, progress or development in the society, the whole people, the whole race, the whole ethnicity, the whole Yoruba people must have that common vision for development. And this is the standard and this is what we want. So no matter who you are, whether you are good or bad, even if you are in government, you have to do it right. So it won't be that we just wait for someone that is good, that is godly, that has a heart for the people to come around and do the right thing, and we are doing fine. When that person is no more, is no longer in power, everything's begin to go haywire when somebody that is not that good, takes charge. So another thing I want to say is that how can we prevent in our new nation that we are planning to get when we get there, how can we prevent politically disgruntled people, from bastardizing the agenda or the program for development for the people, so that you won't take your own personal political career more important than the development of the whole race, of the whole ethnicity, the way it happened before in the past. How can we prevent bad leaders, from stopping or derailing the progress of the whole nation?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Sir P, please take 1 minute and Babalawo 1 minute.
Thank you. Um, just a question about when Bunka said that the reason for the Oyo people to be suspicious about Awolowo was because he's Ijebu.
Now, I remember that from history that the Ijesha people and I think in Ondo too, they voted for NCNC as against Action Group then. So what could be the
What?
reason for them voting
That
against
didn't
Action
happen.
Group then?
So Ajashin was a very big lieutenant of Awolowo. Ajashin played a big role in the formation of Action Group. So how would Ondo have gone with any other party when Ajashin was a big part of that?
All right.
Maybe
Uh,
not Ondo, but I think Elisha voted for NCNC at that time, and if Ijebu's decision to actually, create a blockade against the Bado people benefited the Ekiti Parapor, armies, then one would expect that Ijesha people should have, voted
Yeah, just
positively
give
for the
me a
Action
minute.
Group.
I will give you the breakdown of the elections.
all right.
I have it by region. Just give me a minute.
All right. Thank you so much. Babalawo, please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Hmm. Every time I think about Yoruba Nation, as very much devoted as I am to this movement, I still have that small feeling of fear that what's going to happen. Just like the gentleman that spoke before, the last person said that how can we take care of politically disgruntled member of our society when we get a Yoruba nation? Because I've had people ask me that question several times, but in my mind, I just say, okay, let's just lawyer or no, kawa fear or something. Let's just get out of this whole cage that we are. Like Nina always say, Tony Nadio, let's get out of this cage first. Then we deal with whatever comes with it. Now, the problem with our people is the fact that number one, religion. Okay, a lot of this is the reason why a lot of people, especially on ground in Nigeria, are not seeing the good thing about Yoruba nation. Some people are saying, oh, Oni Alawo ni won, Oni Segun ni won, and all that. And some people are saying um, it is all because for politics. If it was a different party that was there, we will not be talking about this. Even some people even said Sunday Igboho was a different party from a APC. That's why all this agitation. So, but um, I just believe one thing, that in every struggle, in every situation where some people, when you want to liberate yourself or your people, everybody's not going to be on the, fall in line and be on the bandwagon, because you're going to still see some people that be selfish, and there you see some people that don't even know what's going on. They just want to see the results before they fall in line. I have people like that in as my friends and family members. They want to see the results. At some point, I even stop talking to some of my friends about it, because they just feel like I'm just making noise about Yoruba Nation without any results coming up. So, but I just believe that as long as we continue to stay, on course and remain focused, and whatever you know is going to happen, we're going to see a good result at the end of the day. Because one thing I'm very very sure is the fact that the Fulanis don't have any good plan for us. The present government does not have any good plan for the Yorubas or for any other tribe except themselves, which is the Fulani race, the Fulani tribe. So I'm very optimistic that when we get out of this whole contraction called Nigeria, hopefully all this all the people that have not been able to appreciate the movement and all the effort that some of us have put in financially, time and all that, they will start to see what good is coming, and then everybody will start jumping in, and we'll have a good we'll be successful. So I just want us to continue to fight and continue to stay on course, because If we continue to look at, say, we want to have people, a lot of people, we can't get 100%. We can't get 100% because just like the moderator, one of the somebody just said now about the gentleman that was talking about boasting that he was one of those that went to Igbo's house. When I heard that video, when I heard that voice note, I almost shed tears because I couldn't believe a Yoruba man would say that, and he was saying it with so much pride and conviction in his mind that he did the right thing. In his mind, if he believes that he's doing the right thing. And one thing that he said that was one major reason was because Igboho talks too much. So you think because somebody talks too much, that's the reason why you should kill him? Where lies the fundamental human right where anybody, freedom of speech, where everybody can speak their mind and, say what they feel? So these are the things we're gonna have to tackle, as we go on, in this movement. So thank you very much. I yield my mic here.
All right, thank you so much, Babalawo. Bonk, are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, please.
Yes. So we're still talking about the tensions that happened between Awolowo and Akintola, and I'm very happy with your papa's response. Most of these people that go against leaders like Awo, it's because of selfish interest. It usually happens from a complex. They've realized that this man has captured the hearts of Yoruba people, and they're not happy about it. So they will come in through the back door. It wasn't only Akintola that did it. Somebody else did it in the Second Republic. Of course, he's an accidental hero in our consciousness today. But his name was MK Abiola. MK Abiola knew that he could not stand a chance with Yoruba people because for so long as Awolowo was alive, nobody would be recognized like that. So rather than just let him have his time and respect that and pledged loyalty to him, he went to join Chagari's party and did everything to sabotage Awolowo. He was the one that financed Chagari's election. He was the one that opened the Concord newspaper, and they started writing a lot of articles that badly damaged Awolowo's reputation, including his assets at Morocco, which caused tensions between him and the governor of Lagos at that time, Lateef Jakonde, because Awolowo called all his lieutenants and told them that I want you to devote your time to service to the people. Don't use this opportunity to acquire any kind of wealth. That's what he told all of them in the Second Republic. And he was really hard on them. And that's why you see that they were very active in that time, from Ambrose Ali to Jakonde to Bola Ige to you could see all the things to Ajashin, you can see all the things they were doing at that time. So when MKO leaked that, the Concord leaked that news that time and said, "Oh, this man is lying to all of you. He's telling you all that, but look at all his wealth." I mean, they tabled his wealth that he had a very prized estate called the Deolu Court. So they were now placing all that out and stuff like that. So he greatly embarrassed Awolowo. Well, of course, Awolowo was a man of means. There was no doubt about that. But Awolowo was a lawyer, and he used his influence as lawyer to actually amass some wealth. And his wife was a well-renowned businesswoman. But the way they put it out, it was more or less like, "Oh, Awolowo is telling all of you to not amass wealth, but secretly is amassing wealth." So that was things. Then he went through to the market woman. It was MKO that started this union on NURTW because he wanted to take away all the grassroots supports that Awolowo was getting in the motor parks among the market women, just in all this desperation out of complex. So if you see what MKO Abiola did in the Second Republic, it was exactly the same thing that Akintola was doing in the First Republic, working with the enemy because you have a complex, because you realize that you can never steal the heart of Yoruba people, no matter what you do. Because Yoruba people, when they recognize someone as their leader, There's nothing anybody can do to change that. So it's not only peculiar to the First Republic; it's peculiar to people with their own selfish, self-centered agenda. MKO is a hero today among Yoruba people, but if you kind of dissect his history, it's an unmerited privilege. It's an unmerited. Maybe he could have that of sympathy, but if you look at his true legacy, he does not merit a heroic place in the hearts of Yoruba people. My personal opinion. I mean, I don't want that to. Well, let's go to the topics for go on with the topic. So the book, I'm going to be using this book a lot. This is a very sensitive topic, and I would love not to use my own, how do I put this, my own view. So Otumba, did you see my back end channel? I sent something to you that I wanted you to put as an attachment. Is it possible?
Let me see.
Yeah. So to the person that asked about the elections, well, if we're able to put it up, you will see the distribution of the elections and the parties that won each region in Yoruba land at that time. The party that won Ijesha, the party that won Egba, and all. So it's there on that article, but I'm not sure how we can put it on an attachment. I sent it to D as well. So if D can help us. Oh, D is not here now. Maybe he'll come back later. Okay, so yes, someone talking. Okay, going on our article on the tensions between Awolowo and Akintola. Page 76 of the book Gathering Storm. It says, mm, yeah. As soon as he ascended to the premiership, it was clear from his actions that he was out to achieve certain personal objectives. That was Akintola and his Awolowo talking. He wanted passionately to attract popularity to himself, as distinct from that which he and all of us enjoyed as leaders of AG. He wanted to demonstrate that he was more skilled in the art of governance and more devoted to the welfare and happiness of the people than his predecessors in office. Above all, as was discovered later, he wanted to be both premier of the region and leader of the AG. He set about these objectives in a manner which he no doubt regarded as adroit. So from day one, that's what Akitola has been doing. And as you can see, we spoke about how upset he was that they were calling Awo's name. Now, it will get to a point that he actually started, before he goes somewhere, he will send some thugs to go before him. And if anybody is shouting Awo's name, he will tell them to flog him or slap him. That was how much it degenerated at some point, especially after that Just crisis and situation. Now, with the ministerial appointment, they were loyal members of the party and they already had a structure of how they chose ministers. Once again, Akitola went out of the way because he wanted people that would have a cult-like loyalty to him. And so he totally rejected everybody that Awolowo was recommending and the AG party. And he did it in a cunning way. And he also recorded it in his biography. That's Awolowo. And on page 80, he said, oh, okay. It was incurable habit for Lado Kaketola to be late for any appointment. Once we were invited to dinner at Government House by Sir John Rankin, governor of the Western region. SLA was then the AG leader of opposition in the House of Representatives. We had finished the last course of four-course meal when he arrived. He was full of apologies. Mm. In the morning, he explained, a large crowd had suddenly swooped upon him at Ogbomoso and insisted on going to Ibadan with him on a motorcade. And at the approaches of Ibadan, another large crowd had waited to give him a triumphant welcome to Ibadan. I thought it was odd that a triumphant entry into Ibadan would be arranged for him by members of the party without my knowledge. I should be the one to lead the victory procession with him on my side. Surely that would have been more impressive. He assured me that all the arrangements at Ogbomoso and Ibadan had been made without his previous knowledge. SLA sat down as if to have a meal, but instead he said that he was in a hurry to keep an appointment with the governor for 2 o'clock. I expressed surprise. Okay. No, let me not go on reading, so as not to bore you. But this was just to show how he cleverly came to him, and before he knew it, Awolowo started listening to the news and saw that all the ministers that were appointed, Akintola had changed everybody. And Akintola did not discuss it with him. He did not discuss it with the party. He only put people that were loyal directly to him. He also changed the people that were involved in the cocoa board. And yes, I mean yes. So he changed the people that were involved in the cocoa board. I'm trying to see the part. Give me 1 minute, please. January. Yes. Okay, I'll skip that for now. But that was all the things that were going on then. And then corruption started in that government. A government that has been frugal, that has been very economical. They became very spendthrift. That he was the first person to have a limousine. He was the first leader to have a stretch limo, bulletproof cars, and all those stuff. And they were talking about the corruptions that were going to have £1 million that he was talking about in page 84. But by 1960 and 1961, they had become very affluent. In fact, when the coup occurred in January 1966, Obasidi Akran had become so contaminated by his close association with SLA that he had accumulated about £500,000 locked up in a coffin in his house. Does that coffin thing sound familiar? I don't know why they put money in coffin. I think the Oba of Lagos too recently they found money in a coffin in his palace. I'm not sure what this thing about putting money in coffin is about, but this is something again that happened with Oba Akran, and they said they found £500,000 there. Dr. S.D. Ono Bamiro, Akintola's Minister for Education, and the star witness at the treasonable felony trial, was also convicted and sentenced to prison for stealing a sum of money, the property of the Western Nigeria Marketing Board in 1968. So this was the corruption that was going on at that time. And this was all the things that was going on that was seriously embarrassing the AG party, seriously embarrassing Awolowo. And these were things that led to the meeting at Jos to see how they can clean it up, which I was talking about earlier. And on page 94 of the book, it was saying, according to the newspaper, okay, I think we read this already, talking about how Akintola rushed back to get to meet with the Sadana, and because they were naming a hall in Ibadan after him, his grandfather Sultan Bello. So this was where they felt like they were having the final straw, and they started believing that they were going to do something against Akintola. One thing good at that time was that Awolowo was in control of the Senate. That is, the parliament was totally AG, and they were still loyal to him. So he had always felt like the institution will correct things, which was the mistake he made from the start, that no matter what Akintola does, since he's very respected among the AG people and the legislators will always support him, he would use the real legal means to get him out of power if he misbehaves. But now, on page 119, it was talking about plans about Akintola now to now deviate away from the party. But he wanted to stay enough to destroy the party before he moves on. And then he wanted to now take the fragments of NCNC members and then merge them so that they can now form their new party. At this point, Akintola was considering going into NCNC. That was the plan, or that was the treachery that they thought was going on. So now, page 119. So Oba Akran arrived in London unnoticed. He was there. That was on 16th May 1982. He was there to have consultations with both Chief Festus Okotiebo and Chief Remi Kayode, Chief Remi Fani Kayode, about the crisis in the region, Western Nigeria. It was believed and events have since justified the belief that Akran went to London to see Chief Okotiebo on the possibility of making money available to Akintola's faction and to see Chief Fani Kayode, the leader of opposition in the West, on the possibility of Akintola's faction forming a coalition government with NCNC. So that's what was going on then. This same NCNC party that Awolowo fought so hard to break away from so that he can preserve his people. These people, in their desperate attempt to find all things to just remain in power, were now trying to go back to this party. But Akintola was trying to work with the opposition leader, Fani Kayode, and Okotiebo, who was a big financier of NCNC, to see how they can destroy Awolowo's political base, capture Western region for NCNC, but Akintola will still remain the premier at that time. Those were all the things that were being planned. Now, on page 120, when Awolowo saw that what was going on, he decided that he was going to do a tour of the whole of Western region to test his popularity and see if the people still wanted him. And the reason why he was doing this was because if the people still accepted him, then he was going to put motions in place to see Akintola impeached. Well, he said he wasn't going to do it unless he was sure that the people still respected him as a leader. So he said on 17th May 1962, he said, I started my tour of Osun Division. I visited Agowu, Ikire, and Bogon and held peaceful and successful meetings. The largest crowd that had ever come out in these places turned out to meet me with unbridled enthusiasm. So Akintola, the successful and peaceful beginning of my Osun tour was regarded by my loyal supporters as a sign of victory. But those belonging to Akintola's faction regarded it as a big challenge and a dangerous inroad into what was previously regarded as Akintola's domain. Akintola was a native of Ogbomoso in Osun Division, and his faction believed that he would always enjoy the support of Osun's people, come what may. But Osun people thought differently. They were not prepared to accommodate any disloyal member of the party, whatever the status, and they made that clear that their loyalty is to me. So this is where Akintola started to get worried. When he saw that Ogbomoso and his region was actually supporting Awolowo, it started to worry him. So he said that on 1962, Akintola started now calling him and started to see how he can reconcile or how he can join him on that tour, which of course Awolowo said, no, I'm not going on the tour. That he's not going on that tour with him. Now, page 124, after that tour, that he made, they now decided that it's time to get rid of Akintola for everything that he's been doing. So they called him and had a press conference and told him to apologize for all the things he's been doing, which he did. But the party said it was too late. And so on 21st May 1962, he was removed as the premier of the Western region. So in the evening, the Action Group Parliamentary Committee elected Alhaji D.S. Adigbero as successor to Chief S.L. Akintola and as parliamentary leader of the AG in the Western House. Alhaji Adigbero was nominated by Chief Odebiyi. The nomination was seconded by Onobamiro and was unanimously approved. This happened in May 1962. That was when trouble started. So this really frustrated NCNC, who was thinking that they were going to use. I want people to listen to this very well, how politics can be very ugly. The North told Akintola to act like he was working with NCNC, but Akintola had big hatred for Igbos, big, terrible one. And so now two things were happening. They were trying to take Fani Kayode, who was in NCNC, use him to break any NCNC opposition in the Western region, join him with Akintola, but the plan is to build Akintola as a bloc as the new partner for the North and then use them to checkmate the Igbos, who the Sardauna was being very uncomfortable about at that point. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry, I was reading something. So that was what was going on. But the way NCNC took the Midwest, they thought that was how they were going to get the Western region. That was what Zeke was thinking. And so that was a checkmate going on. They were also thinking of how they were going to remove Zeke from power and replace him with the Minister for Justice at that time, whose name was Justice Adetokunbo Ademola. So all this was what was brewing. The checkmate will be, let the North, after they've used Igbos, let's dump them. And then let's switch to Yoruba people. And then we'll use Akintola. And then after, if they misbehave again, we'll dump them again for Igbos. So it's always the husband and two wives, that game that they want to play, which is what will be happening in politics if politics happen for a long time. They want to be on top and then decide they want the two wives, want the wife from the east and the wife from the west, to always fight each other about who will be the special VIP or the favorite mistress. That's what they put in plan, and hopefully,
So
maybe.
we are Ashawo.
When it gets to that,
Are you saying we
maybe
are Olosho or Tumba? Are you saying we are
I,
Olosho?
that was what was happening then, toying around with two two mistresses. So this was what was okay. I'll take a minute break now. Let me.
All right. Thank you so much for the hard work you're putting in. We really acknowledge and we appreciate that. Someone sent me a back channel message that he would want me to play the original Ubat Ogunde Yoruba Ronu. Please listen to this.
Ó bojú wáyé ò wáyé ṣámálámálá, ó máa bójú ọ̀run òkùnkùn ló ṣe wọlé mo ní ẹ̀ẹ́rẹ́. Kíní dé sí Yorùbá ò ọmọ aláyé, kíní ṣẹlẹ̀ sí Yorùbá ò ọmọ Oòduà o. Yéyéyé, àwa máa ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ náà ń bẹ. Yorùbá ń ṣera wọn nítorí owó, Yorùbá ń ṣera wọn lẹ́sẹ̀ nítorí ipò. Wọ́n fẹ́ fi fàlàré, wọ́n bàrẹ̀ balẹ̀ bí, wọ́n kò lè fowó ajá, wọ́n tún kò ló fowó mú. Ọgbọ́n tí wọ́n bá tó fẹ́ wọn délé ọ̀la, ọgbọ́n náà ló tún padà wọ́n sì lé wọn mọ́lẹ̀ o. Àwọn tí wọ́n ti ń ṣọ̀tá lọ́jọ́ tó lè pẹ́, wọ́n padà wájẹ́ ní à ń fọwọ́ sílẹ̀ ní o. Yorùbá yóyóyó bí iná ayé, Yorùbá rúrú bí omi òkun, Yorùbá bàbá ni bàbá ń ṣe. Yorùbá Yorùbá sọra wọn di bọ́ọ̀lù fáráyé gbá. Wọ́n bá bá wọn lókè, wọ́n tún bá wọn ti sàlẹ̀. Ẹ̀yà tí ó ti kéré tẹ́lẹ̀ ni wọ́n gbé kúrú. Àwọn tí ayé fẹjọ́ tún ti rẹ̀ ní àdéhà Yorùbá jókòó sílẹ̀ rẹ̀gẹ̀dẹ̀ wọn mọ̀ wọ́n lọ́wọ́. Bí àgùntàn tí abọ́ rẹ̀ kú bọ̀ ní sáré ilẹ̀ o. Yorùbá oríkì báyìí burú títí kó gbógun ọdún lẹ́yìn òkùnkùn biribiri ìmọ́lẹ̀ àtàn o. Ẹ jẹ́ ká kó lódùmarè ká kọ́ balùwàyé káyé wa lè dùn nígbẹ̀yìn ìgbẹ̀yìn láláyò ilẹ̀ mú pè ọ́ o. Ilẹ̀ ọ̀kẹ́rẹ́ àkọ́kọ́ yẹ rí alákò ó lẹ́rìí káde ọ̀kàrà kẹ̀dà bí ẹni yèyé ọmọ dàrú balẹ̀ àjọ yèyé. Òjijì ti pa ìkàlẹ́nu mọ́. Ẹni bá dalẹ̀ abalẹ̀ lọ ògbére gẹ́gẹ́ o. Àwa gbórí ilẹ̀ yìí pẹ́ o. Odùduwà bá wa tó lẹ́yìn ṣe ò tọwọ́ náà máa o. Àwa gbórí ilẹ̀ yìí pẹ́ o. Odùduwà dá wa láre o ká sì máa rere jà o. Àwa gbórí ilẹ̀ yìí pẹ́ o.
Mr. Bunker.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay. So let me rush through some things going on now. Like we'll go after that. After he was removed from power, it greatly messed up the plans of the North, and of course the Igbos who thought that. Let me not say the Igbos. That would be disrespectful on Igbos as a people. But NCNC Zik faction, which is not a Paras faction. Emphasis must be laid on that. They were not comfortable with what was going on because, like I said, there were plans going on for Akitola to shift with his loyalists from that party. So it was like a coup happened before they could launch their own coup. So they now came in and declared a state of emergency. First, they made Akintola to cause some tensions as an excuse to declare a kind of state of emergency. And this state of emergency was one of the reasons why um what's his name? Ojuku rejected the clause on Aburi Accord because he saw how they used that to checkmate what was going on. So after they came back from the Aburi Accords and Gowon said the state of emergency will still exist, Ojuku said, no, lie, that's not going to happen. It's because of what happened here. Immediately after that happened, and the state of emergency was declared, everything that the parliament in the Western region did was totally reversed. Then they now put their own hold on. I wanted to I think it's 225. They put their own I want to remember his name. Can someone remind me the name of the administrator that the federal government appointed to now head the western region after the state of emergency? Okay, I will get the name now. It's in the book. So they now decided that it's time to now put Awolowo in check for good, because every time they're trying to checkmate him, he's always one step above them. So now they have to do something to get rid of this troublesome man that has just become a pain on their neck, that has become like
This is Magic
a
Kodumi.
Majek Kodumi, thank you very much. So they put Majek Kodumi there, and then Majek Kodumi on May 29 of 1962 placed Awolowo on house arrest at Ikenne. So the reason why they did that is that they want to remove him from the consciousness of people and try to see how to stop his popularity. And during this situation, once again, his people came down to mock him, and he was discussing something. And this is a very interesting thing. I would like it will help you understand more of the Ibadan Jebu tension from the way Awolowo put it himself. So, yeah, 220, 220 to 212. 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. So it says, my the Olubadan Akiyele. Okay, 2nd June also passed restfully. Nevertheless, apart from others, I had three very important, and this was when he was placed under house arrest, by the way. He's been placed under house arrest now. He's been told to not go far between certain radius of his house, and that before he goes beyond anywhere out of his house, he must report to a police station close to that is where he was placed under house arrest at Ikene. So he said 2nd June. I had three very important and distinguished visitors. One was the Olubadan of Ibadan, late Oba I.B. Akinyele. The other two came together in the same car. They were Oba T.T. Dada, the Olota of Ota, and Chief Homponu Wusu. The three came at different times, the Olubadan before noon and the Olota in the evening. They all strongly admonished that ways and means should be sought to bring an end to the crisis. As for the Olubadan, he predicted he predicted correctly that if this crisis was protracted, there might be bloodshed and loss of lives, but incorrectly that my own life might be lost in the process. This was undeniable a dreadful morale killing prediction to make to someone in the plight in which I was. My reaction was quick and defiant. I said, with subdued indignation. Kabiyesi, have you heard of Attila the Hun, the great warrior who once conquered Rome? He had said, there where I have passed, no grass shall grow again. Fortified with the justness of the cause we espouse in this crisis and trusting in the never failing providence of God, I can say with confidence that where my blood is shed, no grass shall grow again, and no life is likely to flourish again. This man and his confidence, Awolowo. So I continued. Undoubtedly lives undoubtedly lives might be lost if the ugly crisis continues for long. But God, who sees our hearts and knows why we have refused to bow to blind tyranny, as a result, in this politically helpless plight, will protect me and my colleagues from any harm. There, the conversation between me and the Olubadan ended. Olubadan Akinyele was a great Oba and deeply religious man. Indeed, he was both king and priest. He was pastor of the Apostolic Church in Ibadan. But in this matter, he had allowed his best judgment and righteousness to be overcome by old intertribal prejudices between Oyo and Ijebu. I'm going to read that again. The Olubadan Akinyele was a great Oba and a deeply religious man. Indeed, he was both king and priest. He was pastor of the Apostolic Church in Ibadan. But in this matter, he had allowed his best judgment and righteousness to be overcome by old intertribal prejudices between Oyo and Ijebu. He was one of those who, together with Oba Akran, as against the Oni of Ife, encouraged Akintola not to return to Jos to participate in the closing stages of the AG Congress. So they actually came there to insult him. They said, in fact, he said quite bluntly that it was very foolish. In Yoruba, he said, "Ìwà òmùgọ̀ pátápátá ni ìwà yẹn," for any person to try to measure his strength with the government of the day. All the four governments of the federation are against you. What can you do? Nothing. The wisest course open to you is to go to the Sadauna and Belewa and beg them. Otherwise, worse things will happen. That's how Olubadan was talking to Awolowo while he was under arrest. And Awolowo felt like it was more like a mockery, you know. So he said, as they spoke, I felt the height of indignation and revulsion. I did not know whether to order them unceremoniously out of my house or to give them the full length of my tongue. My wife was there. She bore a look of nauseation. I had to control my words, but I did not hide my abhorrence and contempt for their callousness. So this is what is going on. Your leader, someone as Awolowo, was under house arrest. It's interesting what Otumba said now about Sunday Igboho, where someone actually decided that he was going to set him up just because of a personal character. This was Awolowo. You, Anoba, and the dignitaries that should have a problem with a leader like Awolowo being disgraced, seeing how many of your leaders by these same people that killed your king, they killed Alaafin Oloewu, right? They've disgraced a lot of people. They've disgraced Afonja, disgraced a lot of our older leaders, and you are seeing that still happening in another dimension, and some kind of ethnic pride does not grow up in you to say, no, you can't continue to do this to our leaders, and you actually go there to mock a man like Awolowo. That is the height of confusion for people like me, or for people who are deep pro Yoruba people that just don't understand why you think it's okay for the government to be harassing someone like Awolowo, and you think that it was Mugoni that should go out there to go and be tobalaying for them. That's how twisted and messed up we Yorubas can be sometimes. And I hope we would learn lessons and learn what it is to be conservative, in my view. Now, going forward, Um, when they put him in this house arrest, they thought it was going to stop people from reaching out to him. But he now said, day in, day out, people started visiting him, and they were coming in high numbers. As he said, um, in concrete terms, my visitors had come in different groups from the same or different areas. It meant that I had to speak all day, repeating the same story to each group that came. On an average, I address as many as 12 groups daily, at an average of 200 people per group. My wife did not take part in the speaking marathon. She was busy all day, assisted by some of her female friends and relatives in constantly preparing food or refreshments for the crowd. Or sometimes they grow as much about 700 people that would show up. She occasionally took time off to listen and to greet the delegations very warmly. Apart from listening to me, each delegation made sure that they delivered the message which they had brought from their people, a message of solidarity and of loyalty and unflinching support for me until victory is ours. Awolowo's wife is a woman every leader should pray for. I've read a lot about her biography and a lot of things Awolowo said about her, and I don't know, like it's probably if Otumba, are you there? I don't. Yeah. So one day you
Yes.
should let us have a session on her, just dedicated to her. There's a lot to say about her, and maybe we would have great women too in our time that not only will achieve great heights, but will be able to propel the leadership in their men the way she did to Awolowo in many ways. But here she was standing by him, the same woman that enjoyed all the status of premiership. They're under house arrest. She's there with him, cooking and doing all that. So now this went on day in, day out, and Balewa was very uncomfortable with it. They didn't like what was going on. And on page 216, um, yes, it kept going on and on and on. And Akitola too was telling Balewa that the attempt to do this did not work because the intention to place him under arrest is to stop dissociate him from the crowd, dissociate him from the people, so that his popularity would wane. The same thing they tried to do with Mandela. So they decided that they were going to do something more ingenious. They were going to send him to a place where people would not be able to reach him easily. And can anybody guess where that was? Because you won't think of it now because the place has roads and all that. But in the 1960s, that was a place that you only can go there by road. But it's what we know as Lekki today. Lekki was a sort of islands. There was no inroads to the places. That was before the developers showed up and sandfilled the whole place. And where we know as Awolowo Museum in Lekki today, that was where he was placed under house arrest. It was surrounded by boats, by deep sea and water. Lekki was named after a man called Lequi. He was a Portuguese man. He was a slave trader. So that was where he had as his base. So people from the hinterland would bring slaves to him. And I've been to the museum, and I advise anybody in Lagos to go check it out. It still has the big hole where he used to put people before overnight and then lock them up in there before they send them up to the slave ships that took them to southern America, Brazil in particular. So this place was mosquito infested. Lucky, the man Lucky was named after died of mosquito malaria. So I mean, you can see it's a buzzing place. It was not a very uncomfortable place, but that was where they sent Awolowo to detach him away from the crowd. Lo and behold, his wife went with him as well. They got a boat and they left. So I'm going to read about that episode again, coming directly from him. So um, it was 7:30 p.m. and dark when we arrived at Lekki Beach, and so we spent the night there in a boat. At 15 minutes to 10 o'clock on the morning of 20th June, we left Lekki shore for Lekki village on foot. Before dawn, News had gone round that I was there in the boat. Consequently, we had no difficulty at all in getting well wishers to help us transport our cargo of food and other domestic requirements to the government rest house at Lekki. The accommodation at Lekki was poor and totally inadequate. In the main building, there were two rooms, one very small and the other about 12 feet by 10 feet in dimensions. There was also a sitting room, which was smaller in dimensions than the larger of the two rooms. My wife and I used the larger room. The women who accompanied my wife, together with her female staff, crowded themselves in the smaller room. At bedtime, they used this room as a sitting room. My private secretary occupied one of the two rooms. Our other male staff squeezed themselves in the other room. At bedtime, two of the male staff shared my secretary's room. The roof of the main building was leaking. The windows in the sitting room did not shut well. Consequently, whenever there was a storm, which occurred there frequently, the sitting room always got flooded. One evening, the flood was ankle deep. Whenever this happened, the female members of our team had to pack themselves like sardines into the small room. That is the suffering they made the sage go through because he decided to stand up for you and me. And so I guess you guys would understand. I am kind of close to tears now. I think I'm going to stop for a minute. Can you someone take over?
Thanks, brother. Uh, does anyone have anything to add?
Can this book be picture? Can it be put up there, or it's not available in PDF?
Yeah.
Because because this is a kind of book that I
Yeah.
seriously did
I
not know
think it's
to.
Awolowo's biography. Bunker,
The
are you able to
the
tell us the
autobiography of Awolowo.
exactly?
The
Exactly.
autobiography of Awolowo. And
Yeah.
Bunka,
Thank
thank you so much. I just ordered the book off of Amazon because of this narration. Thank you. I plan to read it as well. Yeah.
you. All right. Thank you. Your papa. Do you still have anything to say?
Yeah, I wanted to add something in the last question that was asked by somebody before Bunka took over. So, when people say they want to infiltrate the system to change it from within, for people that knows the antecedent of Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the current vice president, you will know that these are people who were actually fighting the system from outside. And at a point in time, they decide to go inside and change it. Now you can see that it's difficult to actually change that system from within if you are not a stand well somebody. So I mean stand well by saying that changing that system from within is kind of difficult with the kind of system that we are practicing right now, with the kind of over centralized system where some powers were not given to the state or to the regions to, unlike when Awolowo was, So all this history that Bunka is reading is not that the vice president doesn't know. He's married into that family. He knows the antecedent of Awolowo. He knows that we should have a Yoruba interest, but he just decided to, not that he decided, the system
Will not
handicap
allow
him
him to
that
do
he
anything.
cannot.
Thank you, your papa.
Exactly. The system will not allow him to do anything. And you say you want to go and change the system from within. I guess many of you do not know that you have to swear an affidavit. You have to swear to
You
an
have to
oath, not
swear
affidavit now.
the
You have to
constitution.
swear to an oath. You have to go to the Sudan of Sokoto to go and swear, to go and sign. So they will tell you boundaries, the places that you cannot touch when you are president or when you are. There are places you cannot touch. They will tell you cannot go there. So for us to actually have a system that will develop the Yoruba people, Nigeria needs to go down. Nigeria needs to be balkanized, and this current constitution needs to be brought down totally. Then we can have a people's oriented constitution like the one we had before the 1960. You get? So the system that allowed Awolowo and the likes to do things that put the resources of their region in their hands, and they use, and Awolowo use it for the development of the Yoruba people must come back, or else we are going nowhere. So saying that you're going to go to that system and change from within is nearly impossible. In short, it is very, very impossible because some people with certain agenda will never allow you. And if you try to go to touch what they say you cannot touch, my brother, you are going to get yourself killed. I'm telling you, I've been in that system before. I will tell you that not be anything. You have to swear that oath. If you don't swear that oath, they won't even give you ticket. If you don't swear to that oath, you won't get that ticket. That's the fact. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. My sister Korikosun, please go ahead. Korikosun.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm going to make it short. Now, I was going to respond to somebody, but I'm just going to do it now and make it. Now, the problem that somebody was saying is we Yoruba people, we are the problem. Yes, we are the problem. And I'm going to also say that no race in the world that doesn't have a problem. No people that don't have a problem. And as far as fighting wars, Yoruba people are not the only ones that have fought wars among each other. Even Europeans fought wars among each other. War is just what it is. That's just what it is. There's going to be fights. There's going to be issues. Okay, but our greatest problem, honestly, is Nigeria. Okay, because Nigeria gave a breeding ground for a lot of rubbish. Okay, because a lot of these Yoruba people think selfishly. They think for themselves alone, and they think in terms of Nigeria because they see Nigeria as a big fat cow that needs to be milked. Okay, so instead of thinking for their own race, for their own ethnicity, they think, okay, now I have the Igbos, I have the Fulanis, and I have this big old land, and there's all these natural resources all over the land. So if I'm a minister of this, or commissioner for this, or president for this, so instead of me just having a pickpocket into just Yoruba resources alone, I'll have this opportunity to get a pickpocket into the whole federal government or whatever, into everyone's else property. So Nigeria gives a breeding ground for that. So our people think selfish because of that. Okay. So Nigeria is the problem. So the sooner we realize that and bring down that constitution and bring down that calm of a country, and because if we are able to manage our own, if we stand alone and we are sovereign, okay, if we stand on our own, tiwa, we will know how to deal with each other among ourselves. And I'm going to conclude by saying that we need to make it expensive. We need to make it expensive for traitors. We need to make it expensive for betrayers. Because this is what people think. They think they can do anything, guys. They think they can do anything and get away with it. And get away with it because before you know it, they'll say Tiwa, then just let it go. You are and all that stuff. So we need to get into the system of accountability and people need to pay for what they did. There has to be consequences. And that's what I have to say. So we need to install the rule of law. The rule of law has to be very important. People have to know that they can't just come and do anything. They can't come and be a traitor. If you're a traitor, you will pay for it, you know? And that's what I have to say. So when we have that, they'll start thinking twice before they'll think twice before they betray. They'll think twice before they steal the wealth that belongs to everybody and put in their own pocket alone. And God help us all. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. G Baba.
Otumba, I have a question and a request, right? The first question is this session broadcast?
Yes.
Oh, it's on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I would urge us to do a rerun of this book. And for those of us that are here, we have learned a lot more. This book has to be live streamed again. Maybe we can include Facebook. And if possible, we can take questions from the Nigerian audience. And I will use this opportunity to talk to my people. Ẹ̀yin èèyàn mi nílé tẹ́ ń gbọ́ wa. So sorry for those of you that do not understand Yoruba. I'm intentionally trying to speak this in Yoruba. Tí ẹ bá wo nǹkan tí ó ṣẹlẹ̀ sí bàbá Awólọ́wọ̀, kò tí ì yàtọ̀ sí nǹkan tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ sí àwọn tí ó dìde ní ọjọ́ òní tí wọ́n ń sọ nípa pé kí òmìnira dé fún àwọn èèyàn gẹ́gẹ́ bí àwọn èèyàn tí ò ń ṣe politician. Lóòótọ́ gbogbo wọn náà kọ́ la wà lẹ́yìn wọn gẹ́gẹ́ bí èèyàn Yorùbá bí ike, ṣùgbọ́n ẹ jẹ́ á fi àpẹẹrẹ ọ̀gbẹ́ni Sunday Igboho nǹkan tí wọ́n ṣe fún ni wípé wọ́n tẹ̀ lọ sílé ẹ̀ lóru wọ́n fẹ́ lọ pa ẹ mọ̀ pé irú ẹ̀ náà ṣẹlẹ̀ fún bàbá Awólọ́wọ̀ tẹ́ bá tẹ̀ tún wá wo ọ̀gbẹ́ni Kánú nǹkan tí ọ̀gbẹ́ni Kánú ń go through nísìn ìwo ló fi yàtọ̀ púpọ̀ sí nǹkan tí wọ́n ṣe fún bàbá wa Awólọ́wọ̀ ẹ tẹ̀ tún wá wo ọ̀gbẹ́ni Ṣówọ̀rẹ́ Àbújá tẹ̀nà gbé yẹn sí àtẹ̀dúpẹ́ pé ilé tí yẹn wà nísìn ó bẹ́tà ilé tí wọ́n gbé bàbá Awólọ́wọ̀ sí ní Lẹ́kí nígbà yẹn ṣùgbọ́n tẹ́ bá ṣe àkíyèsí nǹkan yìí náà ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ṣùgbọ́n ẹ wá wo àwọn wo ló ń bá wọn jẹun ẹ wo ọ̀gbẹ́ni vice president bàbá Ọ̀ṣínbàjò ṣé wọn wípé bàbá Ọ̀ṣínbàjò ni ó ń lọ sí court ló ń jà fún òmìnira àwọn ènìyàn kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀ ṣé lóòótọ́ tí ewé bá pẹ́ nínú ọṣẹ ó máa ń di ọṣẹ ni ó má dàbí wípé ewé yìí má ti dọṣẹ o ta ló máa wá gbà wá ẹ̀yin èèyàn wa àwa tá a wà níbí ebi kọ́ ló ń pa wá o púpọ̀ nú wa nǹkan tí a máa jẹ nǹkan tí a máa mu Ọlọ́run ti ṣe ẹ̀dá ẹ̀ fún wa lóòótọ́ púpọ̀ nú wa náà a mọ̀ wípé à ń fi ẹ̀mí wa sí ewu ní gbogbo àwọn nǹkan tí a ń ṣe ṣùgbọ́n ní àárín ọkàn wa àwọn mẹ̀kúnnù àwọn ló ń jẹ wá lógún púpọ̀ nú wa tí a bá ń sùn a mọ̀ pé ìrìn àjò la wà púpọ̀ nú wa sì mọ̀ pé kò sí bí ìta ṣe máa dùn tó wọ́n ní bílé ò bá dùn bí ìgbẹ́ níta ṣe ń rí a wà ní exile ni o mi ò mọ̀ túmọ̀ ẹ̀ ní Yorùbá mo fi lọ exile la wà a sì mọ̀ ṣùgbọ́n ní ẹ̀yin tí ẹ jẹ́ èèyàn kìrìsìtẹ́nì ẹ jẹ́ ń fi nǹkan kan rán yín létí nígbà tí Shadrach Meshach àti Abednego tí wọ́n wà ní exile kí lórúkọ mi ò mọ̀ túmọ̀ Yorùbá wọ́n ń jẹ oúnjẹ ọba wọ́n ń yó ṣùgbọ́n ilé wà lọ́kàn wọn nítorí rẹ̀ wọn ò gbàgbé ilé wọn ò forí balẹ̀ fún òrìṣà mìíràn yàtọ̀ sí òrìṣà tí wọ́n ń bọ nínú ilé nǹkan tó ṣe Shadrach Meshach àti Abednego ló ń ṣe púpọ̀ nù àti àwà níbí tó yẹ pé tí a bá sùn a máa ń rántí ilé nítorí pé tí ilé bá da ilé la fẹ́ wà wọ́n ní ilé làbọ̀ èrè oko ẹ̀yin tí ẹ sì wà nílé tí ẹ bá wà lẹ́yìn wa kò sí nǹkan tá a lè ṣe o so ní ìwọ̀nba program tí a ń ṣe yìí ẹ jọ̀wọ́ tẹ́ bá délé ẹ bá àwọn ẹgbẹ́ yín sọ ẹ bá àwọn èèyàn yín sọ ẹ pọ̀ wọn ọ̀tá yín ẹ ní láti máa pe family meeting ní agbogbo kí ẹ máa sọ nǹkan tí ẹ ń gbọ́n bí ẹ̀yin tẹ́ bá ní àǹfààní láti record ẹ play ẹ̀ fún àwọn ọmọ yín nítorí pé àwọn ọmọ Israelite nígbà tó wà ní Egypt nǹkan tí wọ́n ṣe wọ́n make sure in fact tẹ́ bá ka ìwé bíbélì mi ò promote bíbélì o but mo fẹ́ kẹ́ take example ó ní kí wọ́n kọ́ sí ẹnu ọ̀nà ilé oníkálùkù kán kọ́ kí ọmọ wọn ba lè rí kán ba lè kà kán má bàa gbàgbé ilé ẹ jọ̀wọ́ ẹ̀bẹ̀ mo bẹ̀ yín o púpọ̀ nínú wa ti sọnù tipẹ́tipẹ́ ṣùgbọ́n àwọn nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní gímú wa báyìí òun la wá rántí pé àṣé àti lọ jìnnàjìnnà so nítorí náà àwọn tó bá sọ fún yín pé láti gba Yorùbá nation nípa ogun nìkan ni irọ́ ni wọ́n ń pa o nǹkan tí a kàn ní gbogbo yín tẹ́ bá wà lẹ́yìn wa bí ike kò sí nǹkan tí a lè ṣe àwọn kan sọ pé ọ̀gbẹ́ni Sunday Ìgbòho wọn kàwé àwọn ṣe máa jẹ́ olórí wa púpọ̀ nu wa ń bí gbogbo ìwé ilé ayé láti kà o gbogbo ìwé ilé ayé lókè lọ́run a kà ní ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà a kà ní ìlú òyìnbó in fact púpọ̀ nu wa gan ní dìgírì 2 3 4 so kì í ṣe ọ̀gbẹ́ni Sunday Ìgbòho nìkan ló sọ wípé ká get Yorùbá nation kí sì la fi ń wá Yorùbá nation nítorí yín ni o nítorí òmìnira ẹ̀yin náà ẹ wò ó púpọ̀ nu ọmọ yín mélòó ló ń ṣe ọlọ́pàá ló ń ṣe àmì ẹ wo ọlọ́pàá tí nǹkan bá ṣẹlẹ̀ lágbègbè ní àdúgbò yín ẹ wo àwọn sójà tó máa ń wá mélòó nu wọn ló tẹ̀ gbọ́ yín lédè àwọn wo ló ń ṣe DPO ọlọ́pàá yín nígbà tẹ́ bá lọ gbé gànàgànà wá kó wá máa ṣọ́ inú ilé yín ó kàdà pé lọ gbé ológbò ní ọ̀dọ̀ ẹlòmíì ilé tí ológbò òde rí kó máa lékún bẹ́ẹ̀ kí ló dé ẹ̀yin Yorùbá àwa Yorùbá àwọn kan sì wà tó yẹ pé wọ́n ní no pain no gain àwọn kan wà tó yẹ pé wọn ò tẹ̀ fẹ́ jìyà kúbọ̀ kọ́pọ́ rárá rárá, wọ́n kàn fẹ́ máa jẹ ọlá ni. Àwọn ló wà lórí line fún politics o 2023. Nǹkan tó ń fẹ́ jẹ, ẹ wo nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ sí bàbá Awólọ́wọ̀ àtàwọn tó dìtẹ̀, wọ́n sì wà láàrin wa. Ẹ̀yin èèyàn, ẹ jọ̀ọ́ nítorí Ọlọ́run, kí n má bàa sọ̀rọ̀ jù, ẹ jọ̀ọ́, ẹ̀bẹ̀ mo bẹ̀ yín, ẹ jókòó, ẹ máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ń sọ̀rọ̀ yìí lọ, Ọlọ́run á sì fún wa lómìnira. Ọ̀gbẹ́ni everybody in here, please, sorry for, I beg my indulgence for what I did, and thank you for giving me the time to speak to my people. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, G Baba. D, do you have something to say, D?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add something. There was a politician, is that a Yoruba politician, he's the SS to the president, and he's famous for making a quote. He said Buhari is more popular than Tinubu, Awolowo, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Tafawa Balewa. He was saying Buhari is more popular than the founding fathers, and I just, when people talk about, that the decadence of that Aso Rock, can anything good come from somebody whose brain is wired like that because of what they are eating? That was Femi Adesina. Let me drop some quotes from Awolowo so that we can understand the way the sage Chief Awolowo's brain was wired. And I'm going to start with his quote on Nigeria. He said, "Nigeria is not a nation; it is a mere geographical expression. There are no Nigerians in the sense as they are English, Welsh, or French. The word Nigerian is a mere distinctive appellation to distinguish those who live within the boundaries of Nigeria and those who do not." I want to talk about some other of his quotes, especially those that relate with nation building, so that we can understand where is and that quote is on the path to Nigerian freedom from 1947. The next one I'm going to quote is from the People's Republic, 1968. And he's going to talk about Awolowo's quotes on multinational country. He said, "I predict that every multilingual or multinational country with a unitary constitution must either eventually have a federal constitution based on the principles which I have enunciated, or disintegrate, or to be perennially afflicted with disharmony and instability." I would just like to read that last part. Or to which have enunciated, or disintegrate, or be perennially afflicted with disharmony and instability. Let me talk about his quotation on revenue sharing and from the strategies and tactics of the People's Republic of Nigeria, 1970. In a country where the accuracy of census figures is so much in acrimonious dispute, it is gross and aggravating provocation to urge that population should be used as a basis of sharing what belongs to others, who are much fewer in number. And that is the situation we have in Nigeria today. If you look at the revenue sharing formula, population actually accounts for 30% of how the revenue is to be shared. And also equality, which is 40%, so virtually 70%. And then there's another one that talks about land mass, which accounts for 10%. So how can somebody that contributed nothing get a larger share of the revenue that will be shared in the country, based on the principles of revenue sharing that requires those that have more land to get more share of the revenue than those that have less land? And historically, the North have always had more land than the South. So historically and by the Constitution, they are saying that forever and ever, they will always have more share of the revenue than the South. The most important factor in revenue sharing, which is revenue effort, only accounts for 10% of our revenue will be shared. So therefore, the people that contribute the most will only get a benefit of 10% more than those that contribute next to nothing. And that therein lies the conflict. We're talking about a very capitalist South and a very feudalist North. Can it ever work in one country, in one constitution? We are fundamentally different people. Every way, the Southerners have a political and economic philosophy that is different from their religious philosophy. And that is why they can be capitalist in nature. But the Northerners have a political, economic, and religious philosophy that is all one and the same. As a matter of fact, they believe that their religion supersedes every other thing, including their way of life. And that is why their economy continues to suffer and is very, very different from the South. Look at it, even if you compare even states, even population, every single thing, education, the poverty, all the economic indicators, they are very different. And that is why, whilst the southeast, the southwest is on trying to, transit into the fourth industrial revolution, trying to move into the third industrial revolution. The north is trying to move into the second industrial revolution, but they are hell bent on holding the entire country back in that second industrial revolution. And I know I say this a lot, but in order to understand what the industrial revolutions are, just think of it as, I don't want to say the economics in something that will make it so difficult for you to understand, right? But just think of it as 1G, 2G, 3G, and 4G. The first industrial revolution is the agrarian revolution, where human beings transited from hunting into planting seeds for mass agriculture. The second industrial revolution is the era of the steam engines in the 70s. And this was pioneered by between 850 and 1850 and 1950 by the British. And it was when they started using steam engines, and that was the time that there was a massive demand all over the world for palm oil, because oil was the fuel of the engines and all of that. So look at this. That was the second industrial revolution, the era of small production. Or the third industrial revolution, which is the era of the computer revolution. It is when we started having mass aggregation of data. And the fourth industrial revolution talks about the nanotechnology, which is very similar to when you started having compact computer chips and all of that. And that is where you started having all the super small smartphones and smart computing, and we're able to do massive industrialization across the world, talking about self-driving cars and all of the other things that technology has made easy. But Nigeria is currently in just the majority of the southern states are just in the second industrial revolution, trying to catch up with the world and move into the third industrial revolution, trying to do massive gas industrialization in Ogun State and Oyo State and things like that. But guess what? It can't work because the north is still in that agrarian age. They are literally landlocked. They are stuck in that agrarian age. So it is a clash of civilization. And as a clash of civilization, you have a communist north and a capitalist south. The best example is just to think of Korea. I keep on saying it. Nigeria is very similar to Korea in the sense that North Korea, which is a communist state, and South Korea, which is a capitalist state, and the northern part of the country actually controls the country. So it feels like you're trying your best to make something happen, but it's never going to work as long as that constitution is there, as long as the current system is there. And I'm sure that every time the sage, thinks of this, he will only think of his last words to Professor Banji Akintoye. And I would not want to say it. I hope that Otumba will be able to find that video and play it for us so that we can hear what he told Professor Banji before he died about what he needed to do to liberate the Yoruba people. Thank you very much.
All right, FBI. Sorry, I know you were flashing your mic. FBI.
Otumba, do you have that video?
I have it. Yes, I'll play it now after
Okay.
FBI.
Thank
Okay, what I just want to say is this. Actually, this is a Yoruba Nation room, but I'm going to speak in English. I just want to appreciate Bunka for this. I just want to appreciate you and thank you. I felt when you had to hit the mic, just you know the pain and the. I just want to appreciate this. It gave me a sense of how passionate you love these people, these Yoruba people, and I now understand that it's not a crime and it's not um, a sin to love your people. Yes, and you're a proud son of the Yorubas. I'm happy, and I pray for you that your knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, will never leave you behind. You keep having this wonderful thing that make people want to listen to you. I'm really touched by this man. If you are a Yoruba person, and that's within that short period, he had to give the mic. It was very powerful, and yes, I'm happy that I'm a Yoruba man, and I think everybody should be happy whatever they have. What I'm gonna say is this: we've seen all what is happening in our state, and I just want everybody to understand that people will always choose profit over people. Yes, and this is not only the Yorubas. And I think, yes, it is not the right time to point fingers at we, as Yoruba people, because we are good people. And obviously, if God is giving you a gift, it's not giving you 100%. The rest is you will look for it, regardless of how you look for it, but you will find it. But getting to that point, you have to go through stress, rough days, and bad days just to get to the better days. So what I would just say to my people is this: the histories are there for us to learn. The histories are there for us to enjoy. The histories are there for us to digest, to see where we're going. Anything in life, you cannot, even if you're trading forex, if you want to get to the, if you want to know what the actual analysis is going to be, is by checking the past reviews. So, Bonka, God bless you for the Yoruba people, and I believe more of people like you will emerge and to educate us more. And I'm happy that we have over 100 people on this platform. So we need to unite ourselves to liberate ourselves. And I'm happy that D said that I think Otumba should play the video where Professor Akintoye said the last thing our father Awolowo said to him on how we can liberate ourselves. So that video is needed so everybody in this platform can listen and understand where we are now and what we need to do to get out of this contraption. I give the mic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm going to let Bonka go. After that, then we'll come back and play the video. Bonka, are you there and are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me very well?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So we're going on with the. I deliberately decided to make it a reading session because I know how sensitive it can be, and I've had these things before in the past, and at least I'm happy that so far we've not had opposing views that were very emotion leading. So that's why I decided that it's not going to be anything I'm saying. It's going to be directly from the source of the sage himself. So that's why I'm doing that. Normally, I don't do it from reading because these are things I can give the narrations. These are books I've read over and over again since 17 years, since I was 17. So I know most of these words even line by line. Now that's why it's easy for me to know where to switch to 60% of the time. Anyway, going forward, the reason why they did that was because there were plans in place for Akintola to destroy Action Group, take a faction of people loyal to him, and migrate them to a new party. So the Mesujamba strategy at that time was that they should take NCNC, um, Fani Kayode's faction, who was the leader of the opposition then. He rose to be opposition after the death of Benkelemes, and then to merge it with Akintola. But what the North was trying to do was to protect Akintola and make him come join them, not the Igbos. At that point, they had plans in place to destroy Igbo influence in politics, but they wanted it to come as a surprise. So that was the gerrymandering going on, and as we read on, you will understand how the events were unfolding. So maybe that will help some people to understand Mr. Jamba's strategy and to understand how the Fulani man thinks politically and how not to fall into this kind of traps in future for anybody that still aspires to be in there doing all the stuff you're doing. Anyway, on we're now going to page 224. So this was when he was moved to Lekki. And as I said, the real intention was to make Awolowo unpopular, remove his influence from the AG party, and while he's placed under arrest, for them to do a coup within that party that they sabotaged when they removed Akintola from power. They didn't wanted him to remain in power. So this has caused a kind of a dent in their plan because Awolowo thought ahead of them. So he was talking about his experience at Lekki, talking about how the flooding was going under his legs and all that. One thing that I noticed all through was that his wife was by him. And By that time, Mama Didiolu was a very rich woman. She also had most of these companies that were in Ikeja. She was sole distributors for many of them. There was another tension that happened on that issue between her and Makitala's wife. That's another story. But she was a very, very wealthy woman. So imagine someone, a company like Coca-Cola, you are the sole distributor. So everything that they make in Coca-Cola, you are the first person to get them before you sell them to retailers. Imagine how wealthy that kind of person would be. Now, imagine someone like Mama HID Awolowo having that with about 8 companies, 8 blue chip companies. That was how big she was in Ibadan. She had a big stall also at Baggy where she was a sole distributor for fabrics. So she was really wealthy. But in terms of all this, she was ready to step all that comfort aside, forget about all that, and to go into this mosquito infested area where the roofs were leaking, where water was flooding them, and she stood by with her husband without complaining. Now, said on the evening of the flood was on evenings the flood was ankle deep. I'm reading from page 225 now. I hope my cough will not mess up this recording. So So it says, whenever this happened, the female members of our team had to pack themselves like sardines into a small room. After about 1 week of our sojourn at Lekki, the windows were put right by Chief Eddie Taiwo of the Ministry of Works in Ibadan, who had felt impelled to act before the slow process of final approval for the work to be undertaken was given. The powers that be had thought that because of the difficulty of getting to Lekki, my contact with the people would be completely eliminated or at any rate considerably reduced. So like I said earlier, the intention of removing him from Ikene to Lekki was that they needed to a place that was not navigable so that people would stop reaching out to him, so that his fame would reduce drastically while they are trying to do what they need to do an internal sabotage coup. So that's what he is also repeating in his book. So at any rate, considerably reduced. We arrived Lekki on 20th of June, but as from 22nd of June, visitors began to arrive in large numbers, and this continued until to the very last day of our stay there. Every day, we received in Lekki no fewer than 300 people. The crowds were much fewer than at Ikene, but the marathon speech was about the same, and my wife saw to it that everyone was fed. So as you can see, um, putting him there did not stop people from still going there, which became more of a headache to Akintola and a headache to Balewa because they were like, the one thing people don't understand about Yoruba people, it takes a lot for a Yoruba man to accept you as a leader. But trust me, people, the moment the Yoruba people accept someone to be their leader, there's nothing you can do. They will die for that man. I mean, the road it takes to get there might be tough. So this is what people like Akintola, this is what people like MKO do not understand. Even people like Ashiwaju, I don't know what Ashiwaju or where he is, but that's what they don't understand. That this is to gain something in people's heart. It's not about how smart you are as a politician, but how great you were as a leader to them. And nobody has done it better than Awolowo so far in terms of the extent he would go to see to the welfare of his people. So what he was getting in return is return for the loyalty and devotion he had to his people, not from how good he was as a politician. And he never betrayed that because as we can see, it would have been more convenient for him to have been friends with Balewa and to take ministerial appointments, knowing fully well that it would have no benefit to his people. But he chose to live this life because according he lived by what he said. Kàkà kí á dọ̀bálẹ̀ fún Gàmbàrí, ká kúkú rọ́jú kú. So that's the man that said that proverb and lived by that proverb. So now, this is what he had to say about his wife. Still reading from page 225. My wife's resilience was, in bracket, as still is, astonishing and inimitable. If anyone had visited us at Lekki 6 hours before our arrival there, he would have thought that we had been there for weeks. As soon as our villager host left us, she and her indefatigable, hey, Baba and his grammars, she and
Indefatigable.
indefatigable private secretary Biodun Falade, who was very resourceful and never known to be downcast under any circumstances, settled down to work. A kitchen and some makeshift shelters were improvised. The villagers helped to erect them with palm trees. Arrangements were swiftly made for our comfortable stay. I bought a speedboat from Ekpe boatyard on 21st June to run errands between Lekki and Ekpe every morning or at any other time. In this way, we were able to get the newspapers every morning and were able to transmit and receive messages by phone too and from Lagos to Ibadan. If you are not married yet and you aspire to be a great man, please pray for a wife like Awolowo's wife. So that's all I can say. But this is what he had to say about his wife. You know, coming from all that comfort, immediately he said 6 hours. They transformed that place to turn it to a home, created a makeshift kitchen, and with all the sufferings that the husband was going through, she was there cooking for the guests, standing by him, and not complaining one bit. I can imagine what another woman would have done if they were the kind of woman that loved Gucci and Prada and all that. Uh, it would be interesting to know what they would have told their husband, especially being the fact that he's there because of his stubbornness and principles, not because it was something that couldn't be avoided, you know? So going forward, the visits at Lekki became very strong, and obviously they saw that this will not stop people from visiting him. But in between that time, they started their internal coup of trying to migrate that party away from Awolowo, and they started encouraging people to defect from the party through like promises that okay, Akintola is going to emerge as a new leader, and those of you who do not want to follow a sinking boat, this is your time. This is your and he spoke about the defections, and I believe it was on 231. Yes, this is what Awolowo had to say about people now leaving the party and joining um Makintola said, during my stay at Lekki, we were daily bombarded with news of well-known members of Action Group having defected to Akintola's new party, the United People's Party. In addition, the Morning Post, a newspaper owned and controlled by the federal government, published a number of resignations which it describes as shocks in capital letter, in order that these resignations might have maximum adverse impact on the morale of AG members. So this was the propaganda going on then. Awolowo saw them, and for some reason he maintained his cool. But the one that really surprised him the most was the defection of one of his very best friends and a lawyer by profession, and his name was Rotimi Williams. It really shocked him. Of all people that would defect, he thought that he would stand by him, but Rotimi walked away from him and said that he was the breadwinner of his family and he can't afford to be seen with Awolowo at that time. He can't afford to go to jail. He had an aging mother. Uh, I mean, all those ngbati. But so this was one of the reasons why Awolowo felt insulted when he was made the head of the Constitutional Draft Committee in the 70s. And then they now said he was going to be part of the committees. And Awolowo, it was one of the reasons why he rejected it, even though he didn't trust the ministry, that I will not be a part of something that this man is the head of because of the lack of principles he had. Everybody thought it was over for Awolowo at that time. So everybody felt like this is the time to move away from the sinking ship. But of course, those who stood by him to the end were people like Bola Ige, people like what's that man in Lagos? His name always escapes. The governor in the Second Republic. He
Jaconde.
stood by him. Jaconde. So those even Anthony and Nahuru, those were all the people that stood by him at that time. All the others, the major people that they all ran the show together, you know, did all those projects in the 50s. Many of them left at this time. and they started joining Akintola. So now the last stage was put in place. They now decided that something needs to be done to totally get rid of Awolowo, because at this point Akintola was getting very, very scared. Balewa was getting very scared. Page 245 of this same book we're reading, it talks about how they were now planning to destroy actually the NCNC party by bringing in Fani Kayode and his group into Akintola's new faction. And in 245, Maolo said, on morning during the sitting of the Coca Commission and Inquiry. What am I reading? No, this is not what I'm. 224. Sorry, 224. Yes. Uh, 1 minute. So yes, okay, I was right. On morning during the sitting of the Coca Commission of Inquiry, I went to the gentleman's. There I saw Chief Babatunji Olowo Foyeku, senior advocate of Nigeria. He was the leading member of the NCNC. He later became Attorney General and Minister for Justice in the UPP. So, in the UPP NCNC administration, which was formed as from 1st January of 1963, I accosted him and put a blunt question to him. As things are, the NCNC may imagine that if the AG died, that it will inherit its assets and terms of its following. First of all, I am sure by the grace of God that the AG will not die. Secondly, if it died, the NPC will seize its assets so that the NCNC would have labored in vain. As at this time, NCNC did not know, however, that it was laboring in vain. So this is what happens when you let greed cover your eyes. Zeke thought that what was going on was going to benefit him. And what he was trying to do in 1951, where NCNC would control the eastern and western region, that was what he thought was still going on then. And those who were seeing it, and this is a classic case of the same thing that happened to Afonja, right? Afonja was thinking that the people that he was working with would help him to build a mini empire, break his influence from the Alaafin of Oyo, and become Lord and Master to himself. But in the process, he actually sets the pace for his own downfall. That's exactly what was happening at this point that NCNC was not aware of, that Zeke was not aware of. But at this point, Okpara was very skeptical, and Okpara was cautioning against it. But the towering image of Zeke at this point covered a lot of things. So even though he was a premier, his voice was not loud enough to for people to listen to. But he knew that this was not going the right way. And as you can see, he was already being a great admirer of Awolowo. You will see that he was wearing, most of the time, he wears Yoruba attires. Yoruba Agbada, you see him in Ofi. He was a great admirer of Yoruba people. And so he wasn't comfortable with what was going on. Even though he started out, if you look at Opera's biography and they asked him that, what's your greatest regret? He said his greatest regret was that he was part of the people earlier that was convincing Zeke not to form an alliance with Awolowo. But later on, he realized that it was a big mistake, and that's his greatest regret. That was because Awolowo saw what many of them did not see at that time. Maybe because the Fulani people and Igbos, they didn't have anything in common until the British came. But those that have had things in common with them know how they think, how they behave. So they saw the writing on the wall, and Awo, being a spiritual man, deeply spiritual, have seen a lot of things that many people may not have seen. And that's why sometimes when you see some of his quotes, you would think that maybe he has seen what's going to happen in our time that that we may not have seen. So after these things started happening and started unfolding, he had a meeting with Balewa. And on the meeting with Balewa said, so now they said they met on August 6, 1962. And he said uh, by this time, Balawa was getting very uncomfortable. He believes that Yoruba people will never turn their back on Awolowo. And he believes that Akintola did not have what it takes to capture the Western region politically or take that leadership, no matter how much he tried. But at this point, Akintola was more of Kakaki Kumash Sese, Afishe Awada. So you'd remember that after elections, he used to joke a lot, and he said, any Anike dìbò fún wa, dìbò fún wa, ẹ wá lẹ fẹ́ ná, iná yẹn ló máa jó yín. Well, when if we describe that in English, we'll lose the translation. But that was how arrogant he became after that time. So now, when Awolowo and Balewa met, they said, Awolowo was asking Balewa, are you sure in your mind that this crisis will end well for all of us and for Nigeria? If your answer is in the affirmative, I would have nothing more to say. If in negative, then I have some suggestions to make for your earnest consideration. Balewa replied in a low, solemn voice that he was sure it would not end well. For the past 2 days, he continued, he has had sleepless nights. In fact, Dr. Elias and Dr. Majakodumi had just left him. Those were his personal doctors, by the way. So they left because he told them he was expecting me. He had told them that he was unhappy about it all and that they should find ways and means of putting an end to all that was happening. They had told him that if they did what he had suggested, government would lose face. So Balewa was trying to see what can be done with Awolowo, and Awolowo now said his conditions was that um, the person that the parliament installed as premier after Akintola was impeached should be returned, and Akintola should be made to know his place, right? Those are the conditions that he made. And Balewa said he was going to agree to everything, but he will not agree to anything disgracing Akintola from office, that Akintola should remain premier. That so he would work with something that would make him leader again, guarantee his freedom, but he must not remove Akintola as premier. And Awolowo said, no, this is not happening. So that was how the meeting failed to yield its result. So after all these things have happened and nothing clearly came out of it, then they decided that they were going to go for the ultimate destruction of Awolowo by any means necessary. That was when the story of the coup started. So, by the way, all through this time that we were talking, nobody mentioned anything about a coup. So all the time that this man was in Ikene, sent to Lekki, nothing of a coup happened. But immediately they started seeing that his fame, the more you try to destroy that fame, the more it started coming up. The more it started. That was when the talks of coup suddenly came out from nowhere, incited by no other person but Akintola, taking some words that he had discussed with him privately that there's an impending doom coming in Nigeria. And Akintola now shifted that word to make it look like he was suggesting a coup and then built a conspiracy of lies against it. And they were like, yes, this is what we are going to use to get rid of Awolowo finally. We will go back to that after a quick break and then we'll continue. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Um, we're going to now play that audio, which simply uh, was an account of what Baba Banji, Professor Banji Akintoye, said that Awolowo told him. Please listen.
Has a book, Fatherless People, and there is a small account in it of Zeke returning from America in 1933 with very highly blown ideas of Pan-Africanism, the black man in the world, and so on and so forth. Well, he was vulnerable. He was a poor person, and he wasn't getting the kind of help that he deserved. He had applied for jobs to many organizations and many agencies back home in Nigeria, and none of them had given him a job. And he arrived in London on his way back home, and that vulnerability put him in the hands of the colonial authorities. Basically, what happened, the British respected the Yoruba, but they didn't particularly like the kind of black man that the Yoruba were. They didn't like it, because by the time they came, the Yoruba were already fairly highly educated. They had been producing graduates from the last years of the 1850s. And by the time that the British began to come into Yoruba land in the 1880s, 1890s, there were already very many Yoruba graduates in very many areas of life. And when the British finally became the rulers of Nigeria, I'm jumping over a whole lot of things. They didn't fancy the Yoruba at all. They might be friends with the individual Yoruba people, because the educated people for them to be friends with were mostly Yoruba. But they feared that the Yoruba were going to make the profits of colonialism